start with the game of the weekend. Number 8, Oregon, traveling to number 7, Washington. That'll be Saturday, 3:30 Eastern time on ABC. There's about 10 games in the Pac-12 this year that I'm really excited about. So this obviously, I don't know if it's at the top, but it's dang close. That's for sure. You think about what last year was, okay? It was a thriller, 37-34. It was in Eugene, and obviously going to Eugene and getting a win for Washington is not something that comes easy. The last time they did that prior to last year was 2016. They, of course, made the playoff that year, but the Ducks were up 31-27 and methodically driving down the field when Bo Nix got hurt, which kind of crushed all their momentum. And that was obviously in the fourth quarter, and he returned to the game in the final minute, but it wasn't enough. And ultimately, Washington got the job done. So this has been a big point of contention. The what if Bo Nix didn't get hurt last year? Would the outcome have been different? We, of course, have long documented the quarterback conversation here. And while they won't be on the field against each other, and some people have astutely noted that in some of their breakdowns on other shows, we're keenly aware that both Michael Penix and Bo Nix will not be on the field directly facing off against one another. But it is of note that these are clearly two of the best quarterbacks in the country, but they are very different with how they're effective. Michael Penix is about pushing the ball down the field. 35 completions of 20-plus yards. That's the second most in the FBS. The only one that he would be behind in that category is Jaden Daniels at LSU. Washington, remarkably, has notched 43 scrimmage plays of 20 yards or more in the first 5 games. That's the highest per-game average in the country. So it's pretty wild when you think about just how explosive they've been. It's really pretty wild. And then on Bo Nix, on the other side, more methodical, very efficient, not going to push the ball down the field as often, but will kind of methodically work his way down the field with what I think is a pretty underappreciated receiver core in general. Now, Bo Nix has been in a lot of these situations in the past. I was actually kind of surprised to come across this nugget. Nobody in college football history on Saturday, of course, will have started more games than Bo Nix. Bo Nix, as of this moment, has 52 career starts. Of course, 53 will come this weekend. That's the most ever by a starting quarterback in college football history. The two that he's tied with, that would be Jake Browning of Washington and Clayton Thorson of Northwestern. I was a little bit surprised on the back end, but you would think that'd be someone from the COVID era. But no, Jake Browning and Clayton Thorson. Both have been really smart with the football. Nix has 1 interception, the only turnover for Oregon, I might add. And Penix, just 2 interceptions. And you think about where Nix is, 80% completion rate, been really, really solid. One other thing of note, too. Bo Nix, and this has long been documented, has not been great on the road relative to how he's played at home. 27 starts at home, dating back to his time at Auburn, 22-5 at home, win-loss, with 49-4 touchdown interception ratio. It's pretty ridiculous. At Autzen Stadium, it's even better than that, 26-2. But now on the road, he's 12-8 and 28 touchdowns against just 15 interceptions. So you go basically 12-1 touchdown interception ratio at home versus a little less than 2-1 when he's on the road. It's a little different guy when he goes into a hostile environment. It's, I think, a little bit of an advantage in favor of Washington, but not by much when evaluating the two quarterbacks and how they're playing at the moment. Which team protects their quarterback a little bit better? They both do a pretty dang good job. Bo Nix has been pressured fewer than anybody in college football. They've had just 3 sacks, 9 quarterback hurries and 10 pressures, and 183 dropback attempts. That's an absurd number. So the offensive line for Oregon up to this point has fared quite well. They might fare well again on Saturday, knowing that Washington's pass rush has been anemic as of this moment. They have just 6 sacks on the season through 5 weeks, and their best player, Braylon Trice, he had 9 sacks last year. That was one of the best in the Pac-12. But he's had just 1. This year, he has affected the quarterback some with hurries, but that Washington pass rush has to step up in a game like this because Bo Nix has had a clean jersey all season long, and if that trend continues, it will be very difficult for Washington to ultimately win the game. Washington, by the way, no slouch protecting their quarterback. I actually think their tackles are excellent, absolutely excellent. But you also think, too, Oregon, while their sack numbers are good, half of their sacks, for the most part, came against Colorado, and we all know what Colorado is along the front. We've kind of referenced the weapons. Oregon's got Troy Franklin. He's amazing. Washington has a trio that is off the charts good that we'll get to here in just a second. I think one of the big question marks in this game is Oregon's far more balanced than Washington. They want to run the football. That's who they are. They're averaging over 7 yards a carry. It's the highest rate per carry in the FBS, and those numbers are inflated because of a game against Portland State early in the year. But even if you remove Portland State's performance in Oregon's total, they're still averaging over 6.2 yards per carry, which would still lead all teams in college football. So I think that will be significant. Can Washington limit Oregon's rushing attack? Because if they can get the running game going behind Bucky Irving and Jordan James, it's a dynamic 1-2 punch, that'll be really difficult, I think, knowing that there are some question marks in the front seven defensively for Washington and the back end, which was the huge question mark coming into the year. If they have to apply an extra guy to the box to take away the run, then you're going to get some legitimate one-on-ones. The matchup of the game, though, and it's strength versus strength. It's Washington's weapons against Oregon's defensive backs. Definitely the matchup of the game. Now, the Huskies, I know you're not allowed to say this because heaven forbid anybody be better than Ohio State at the wide receiver position. But I'm telling you, if take Ohio State out of it, if I could have anybody, I want Washington's weapons. I think they are that good. Rome Odunze, big play threat, wins the 50-50s, creates big plays, way down the field. The guy's he's a first-round pick. I mean, he's the real deal. But Jalen McMillan hasn't played since the Michigan State game, expected to be back this year. He's gone over 103 games this year. Jalen Polk, in McMillan's absence, has stepped up. Maybe not, quite as crazy talented as the other two, but his productivity speaks for itself and has really elevated his play of late. They're obviously a real strength. But Oregon's defensive backs are one of the best in college football. Now, they're top 5 in pass defense, giving up just about 150 a game, and they're first in passing yards allowed per attempt, under 5 yards an attempt. We know what Washington is. They're like 11 yards per attempt, so they're extremely explosive, but the Ducks have done a great job in that aspect. They've yet to allow a 300-yard passing a game from any quarterback, and they've played Shedeur Sanders. And Shedeur Sanders had 159 yards against him. That's 258 below his 417 yards per game average. That was second in the country entering that game. So that is a good versus good analysis. Where Oregon does have a significant advantage, I think, is on the defensive side of the football. Now, that's Dan Lanning's background, and they're significantly improved on that side of the ball, allowing just 12 points per game. That's 5th in college football. Last year, they averaged 27. So they've improved drastically in that area. They've obviously done a great job in the back end. They're pretty good when it comes to rushing the passer as well. Whereas Washington, everyone was really concerned about the secondary. That group's been okay, but it's really the front seven that has yet to play their best football. And if they don't in this game, it could be a little bit sideways. I'm also going to point to the trends in this one. Oregon's 5-0 against the spread this year. They're the only Pac-12 team that's undefeated against the spread. And Oregon's 15-3 against the spread against Washington since the start of 2004. Washington's failed to cover each of the last 4 games following a bye week, too. So all the trends are pointing towards Oregon in this one. All the stats, all the metrics, everything is on the side of the Ducks. So basically, I'll sum it up like this. Almost every conceivable stat that you would go in picking this game supports Oregon winning the game. But here's the problem. This Washington team feels a little bit like 2019 LSU right now, where they're going to be great teams that look statistically superior and maybe more well-rounded, like Alabama was in 2019, like Clemson was in the national championship in 2019, maybe Auburn in that year, who obviously did a pretty good job against LSU, but it didn't matter because Michael Penix is that good and this receiving core is that good. I'm taking Washington to win the game. I think they get it done at home, and I think it's actually a little bit lower scoring than what some people might anticipate.